Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacciana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to clear the Flint tube in this Ronson Mastercase. First we're going to have to trim this wick up a little bit. I'm not sure, I hope it's just the wick. That mechanism is riding a little wonky there as it tries to seat itself down on that chimney. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get that snipped off. Get a good grip with the scissors. Try not to cut sideways and end up doing more damage to the wick than a good clean cut will do. Go ahead and get that discarded, and we'll see how that mechanism moves and seats itself down. Oh yeah, it looks just fine. So it was just the way that thickness of the wick was riding up there. So now we'll go ahead and take a screwdriver and we're going to take loose this fulcrum screw. This particular model of the Mastercase does not have the cap on the back side. It just has the threaded screw that threads through to that back side post. We'll get that fulcrum screw out and then start working the mechanism up and out of there. Sometimes it'll come straight up, sometimes you got to work it back a little bit or forward, but usually it'll come out of there more or less in kind of as an assembly. Then you got your thumb lever and piston spring there. You can see where the Flint tube is completely obstructed, so we're going to have to deal with that and go ahead. I'm gonna go at it for a little bit here, and I edited some out of me sitting there spinning at it with the hex bit in my hand, which I think would have taken forever, because once I got the 3/32 bit in the drill, which you're going to see coming up here in just a second, it still took forever. It really wasn't making much progress, and if I'd have known it was going to be that hard, I definitely wouldn't have started with the bigger drill bit like that in the first place. But I ended up going, I can't even remember now what the smaller bit is. I'm sure Dead Stick Dave can tell me. 5/16, whatever the tiniest one is. I stuck that in there and broke through the old Flint finally. But be careful, because you put any kind of pressure, which I wasn't really putting much pressure on here. I didn't feel like I was putting any at all. And you can see that when that old Flint gives, that it really does jerk in my hand. So there was no damage to that tube. Everything is fine, functioning like it should. But be careful, because that's definitely a hazard that you can run into. Then I'll go ahead and take the 3/32 bit again and just kind of ream it out with my hand, make sure it's all clean, make sure we get all the dust out of there. Most of that rattling around that you could hear was the Flint spring and Flint spring screw that I had just stored there in the case. But you can see there where the old Flint, which it's amazing when it finally comes out, it just looks like an old piece of rock basically. That Flint, when it hardens and or gets moist and hardens, whatever the process is, it really does turn into a stone in there. It's like hardened concrete. So anyway, then we'll go ahead and get some alcohol here, get all of our parts soaking, and then once we get them kind of all wiped down, organized, then we will start getting the mechanism all put back together. So we've got the mechanism all cleaned up, and we'll finish cleaning up here around the base of where the mechanism is all going to fit there along the top of the lighter. Get the piston seat all cleaned out. Get that spring along with the thumb lever or plunger, whatever you like to call it, and you get those held into place or somewhere near it anyway. Then you're going to grab your snuffer, your file wheel. In this case, the snuffer has a clutch spring incorporated into the snuffer cap, which we will go ahead and start with the snuffer cap. You can see that clutch spring incorporated there, housed underneath the actual snuffer. Taking a little screwdriver there, making sure that it is in position. Then take your file wheel, get it into place. Then your gears, or what one viewer once called star wheels, wanted to know how to line up the star wheels. This is how you do it. Once you, as I was saying, you get your file wheel in there. Now you just fit those in there like a puzzle piece. That's all it is. There's nothing to line up. So you get that lined up, both sides. Sometimes can take a minute, especially if the mechanism is good and worn. Just depends how much use it has had, how much moisture it's been exposed to. Could be a great number of factors involved. It's really hard for me to tell sometimes whether I've got it all lined up. So that's why you'll see me taking so much time. I don't want to get it halfway in there and then have to back out because it's not lined up properly. So once you get it all, then you can hold it with your thumb and your finger there, holding those gears on the side. And if you can't just feed it all down in straight, then you may have to get creative. Put the snuffer mechanism assembly in from the front, or maybe even the back, and then move it around once you've got it in between those posts. But if you have a general idea of how the thumb lever lines up with those side gears in this automatic Ronson mechanism, then it's not too difficult to get it all down there, close proximity to being in place. Then actually get your gears and your thumb lever lined up. And sometimes if you try to put the fulcrum screw in there and it won't go, then you'll have to grab a sharper point to kind of bring everything into alignment. Once I did that, then the fulcrum screw slides right down on in there, which it was threaded on the back side, and then the back side post is threaded. So I take that down as far as I can with my thumbnail, and then I'll get the screwdriver on it to tighten it up, and it won't take but just a minute here. That screw is kind of rusted. It's the one that came in it when I bought it, and I don't have another one. I could look around and see. It's possible that I do have another one that size that might be in better condition, but this is the one that I received with it, so that's what I'm putting it back together with for now anyway. Now we will go ahead and get a Ronson Redskin Flint loaded up into it. That part of the operation is easy enough. It's kind of a narrow little angle to get to it down there, but getting the flint in is not too bad. Once you get the flint in though, then you stick your spring, and I don't know if your spring is attached to your flint spring screw or not. mine, the screw came out and didn't readily stick right back in it. But you got to kind of get creative, because you can't just get your fingers right on there like you normally can. So I pushed it with the one finger while I rolled it with the thumb on the other hand. And then, you know, once you get it down there a little bit, then you strike it a time or two to get your flint grooved in the direction that you need it to go. You get that working all smoothly. Then you should be able to go ahead and tighten the flint spring screw on down. Get it closed up. And now we'll go ahead and fuel it. The fill screw over here is very easy to get to, and very easy to get your thumb on to get it out. Take me a minute here to go ahead and get this can of Zippo fluid open and tipped in the right direction without spilling it all over the place. Which normally happens, that I'm going to spill it all over the place anyway. And you can see we're already headed in the wrong direction. We'll get our fill screw back in place and thread it down.
Yes, Giovanni, I overfilled it again.
I like to use my fingernail when I can. Try not to mar things up any worse than I already have a tendency to do. So if I can use the side of my finger or fingernail or whatever, that's usually what I'm going to do. You can see that back side there where there is no fulcrum cap like you're probably used to on most of the later Ronson type lighters. Some of the earlier ones just had the fulcrum screw that threaded into the back. We're going to go ahead and take our knife here and bloom out the top of that wick that we trimmed up earlier. I would normally wait until the end to trim it up, but I trimmed it earlier because I was concerned about how that snuffer was seating. So now that we've got it all fueled up, it's a nifty little lighter. Come in handy for somebody. Until next time.